3. Good evening, everybody. It's people here, many of whom, perhaps most of whom I know, have known for a long, long time. I'm Stephen Rowland. I'm the author of this shindig, whatever it's called. And just a real brief history, and then we. One, two, three, there we go. About the excavation of Gypsum Cave. The Paiute name cave is. Hello. That's the name of the play, because as you'll see, there's a fairly significant Paiute component to the story. I got interested in the fossils. I was a professor of paleontology at UNLV for 41 years. Worked on lots of fossil projects, and I'm now the director of the paleontology lab at the Las Vegas Natural History Museum. Many of my colleagues from the museum are here. Thanks so much for coming and sharing this experience. Several former colleagues from UNLV are here. Oh, okay, thank you. So thanks all of you for coming and sharing this with me. 20 years ago, I got interested in the bones of gypsum that were excavated from Gypsum Cave. It was excavated in 1930, and you'll hear that whole story in the play. The archaeology was studied by a very prominent archaeologist named Marc Rowland. You're going to meet him as a character in just a few minutes. The bones were never properly studied in the 1930s, and I didn't know why. And so I finally tracked them down in a museum in Southern California, and I learned why they weren't properly studied, and that's part of the story that you'll learn in the play. And so I got interested in the people who were involved. I worked during my years at UNLV and my 5 years at the museum. I've worked on lots of fossil projects, and they've all been interesting and fun. Gypsum Cave was different. It was very different because of the people who were involved with the original excavation. Just a fascinating cast of characters that you'll meet them all in the play. I don't need to tell you who they are. It just seemed like it was a theatrical story, and I've spent my career writing technical papers and giving talks at conferences and leading field trips and so on. This story, I felt, really was suitable for a theatrical storytelling, different from the traditional academic approach of writing technical papers or books or whatever. And so that's how we got here. So it's been 20 years in the making, and so I hope you can feel my pride and joy in finally getting to the stage of actually a stage production with a real audience to see the production. This is going to be what we're calling a performed stage reading. All my actors are volunteers, and I couldn't. The play is about 2 hours long, maybe even a little longer than that. There'll be 2 acts with a 12-minute intermission, And I couldn't, it was too much to ask my volunteer actors to memorize 2 hours of lines and lyrics. So you'll see them carrying their script around with them, but they'll be acting out their roles. So that's a sort of a performed stage reading. There'll be a brief reception afterwards out in the lobby for those of you who care to greet the actors who you know. I know many of the people in the audience are friends and family of actors and people who are involved in this project one way or another. So we'll have a chance for a few minutes out in the lobby. We're supposed to be out of this building by 10 o'clock, so we don't have an awful lot of time, but we will have that opportunity. I need to acknowledge my director, Martin Hackett, and my stage manager, Shackelford, and my music director, my own son, Marc Rowland. Without the talent and hard work of Martin and Shaq and Marc, in addition to the actors, of course, this never could have happened. I mean, one thing I've learned in the process of putting this thing together is theater is a very collaborative project, and you really need the talents of a whole suite of characters, of professionals and skilled amateurs to put on a show like this. And so I just can't thank enough the people who have worked with me on this project. There's several other people who need to be acknowledged that I won't take the time to acknowledge them verbally, but I've put in the program people who read the script 4 or 5 years ago in some cases and made suggestions and so on. So again, it's been just a wonderful ride and collaborative effort. So if you would mute your cell phones and unmute your imaginations and close your eyes for about 10 seconds. When you open them, we'll be inside Gypsum Cave. Thanks very much.
Pautsi Gabi, Hatami Witu, Shinawab, Pesha'u Shinawab, Pesha'u Pua'rinkan.
Deep in this cave, I'm embraced by your darkness. Deep in the earth, where the sun never shines. Lost in your chambers of silence and mystery. Ghosts of the chapters of unwritten history. Linger here still where the passages wind. Speak to me, darkness, tell me your stories. Whisper your secrets, allow me to see. Speak to me, darkness of drama and glory. Help me to learn how the world used to be. Deep in the cave, you arouse all my senses. I breathe in the fragrance of ages gone by. Pleistocene creatures that laid here and slept here. Unchronicled people who prayed here and wept here. Help me to conjure them in my mind's eye. Speak to me, darkness, tell me your stories. Whisper your secrets, allow me to see. Speak to me, darkness of drama and glory. Help me to learn how the world used to be.
Hey, are we looking for anything specific?
Not really. The fossils and artifacts were pretty well cleaned out by Harrington nearly 100 years ago. So I don't expect to find any fossil bones, atlatl darts, or anything like that. I just needed to get a feel for the place.
Is this part of your dissertation research?
Well, yes, partly. I'm testing some models for the extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna. You know, the mammoths, ground sloths, and other species? And this is a famous Pleistocene fossil site. But I also have an additional connection with this cave. I'll tell you about it later. Was it spear-throwing humans who killed off my subjects, or changes in climate that brought it about? Maybe the answer is multiple factors: media's climate and two-legged actors. To become Dr. Amy, I need to find out. Speak to me, darkness. Tell me your stories. Whisper your secrets. I'm eager to hear. Speak to me, darkness of drama and glory. Help me to learn why they all disappeared. Peter, put your mask on when you're digging up in the dust. Pack rats probably live in this cave. And they carry a virus. Humans can get it from vaporized rat urine.
Oh, take a look at this. It's a page from an old newspaper.
Holy shit! It's from the Las Vegas Age newspaper. How did you find it?
Oh, Amy, I'm a journalist. I have a natural attraction to newspapers.
Okay. This was the main newspaper in Las Vegas in the 1920s and 30s. Let's see if we can find a date. There it is, February 20th, 1930. Oh, and look, here's a story about Harrington's excavation of the cave. This must be why they saved this page. Earlier this week, archaeologist M.R. Harrington with a crew of Indian laborers began excavating Gypsum Cave, a spacious cavern with multiple rooms located a few miles east of Las Vegas.
The cave was first brought to the attention of Mr. Harrington by former Governor James Scroggin more than a year ago. A preliminary visit by the archaeologist indicated the presence of objects of interest to the scientific world, possibly including artifacts of prehistoric man and bones of extinct animals. The excavation is expected to last several months, so it seems the folks in Las Vegas are interested in what we're doing out here in the desert.
Look at all this dung. It looks like a barnyard. What kind of animals lived in here anyway? Whatever they were, they sure weren't toilet trained.
It is impressive, isn't it? We don't yet know what species deposited all this dung. I'm sure we'll find that out soon enough. But I'm more interested in the people who might have been here at the same time as the four-legged animals.
Why is that so important?
Because one of the biggest questions in archaeology today is the timing of the arrival of humans in North America. Were people here before the extinction of the Ice Age animals, or are they recent arrivals? I've spent my whole career digging up the scraps of people who lived in the distant past. But after all I've learned, one question still burns. When did people arrive in America? When did people arrive in America? I've spent my whole life digging in the dirt. Now my back is sore and my fingers hurt. But despite all my pain, one question remains. When did people arrive in America?
Arrive in America. Arrive in America.
When did people arrive in America? Did Siberian hunters wander far and wide? Did they cross Beringia and reach the other side? Before mastodons and mammoths and camels and sloths slipped into oblivion. Did Siberian hunters wander far and wide? Did they cross Beringia and reach the other side? Before mastodons and mammoths and camels and sloths slipped into oblivion. I can't predict how this will all turn out, but I have my hopes and I have my doubts. I'm betting the Pleistocene big game were here when people came. They were here when people arrived in America.
Arrived in America. Arrived in America.
They were here when people arrived in America. Let's dig some trenches, boys, and figure this out. Bones, 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 digging up bones. Bones, 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 digging up bones. I'm at the peak of my career, pursuing prehistory's unknowns. My greatest work might be right here, or it might knock me on my rear, out here in the desert, digging up bones. Bones, 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 digging up bones.
My husband is the driving force on a quest he can't postpone. Obsession leads him on a course that may end up in our divorce, out here in the desert digging up bones.
Bones, 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 digging up bones. Look at us, we're fossil digging drones. The pay's not great, but what the hell? The Wall Street market crashed and fell. The country's stuck, no one can move her. Thank you kindly, Herbert Hoover. At least we've got a job, we're digging up bones, 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 digging up bones.
Here I am, my big adventure away from friends and telephones. A frighteningly long indenture, a wanderluster's travel quencher, out here in the desert digging up bones.
I left my home on Second Mesa, I'm way outside my comfort zone. Working on this excavation, picking up a new vocation, out here in the desert digging up bones. I'm out here on the desert digging up bones.
Bones, 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 digging up bones. In the driest place that we have ever known. The pay's not great, but what the hell? The Wall Street market crashed and fell. The country's stuck, no one can move her. Thank you kindly, we've got a job, we're digging up bones. At least we've got a job, we're digging up bones, bones, bones. We're digging up bones.
Look what I found. It was sitting right over there in a little niche in the rocks. What do you think it is?
Well, that is an interesting beast, isn't it? I have no idea what it is. I'm an archaeologist, not a paleontologist, but my paleontology colleague from Caltech is coming out to help with the fossils. I'm sure he'll be able to identify this fellow for us. This is going to be a tricky excavation with the irregularities of the cave floor and the narrow opening into the inner part of the cave. But I have a good feeling that results will be worth the trouble. Is that a car I hear in the distance? I was right. I bet that's our paleontologist. Who else would be driving out here at this time of the day? Well, as I live and breathe, could this be the world-famous Caltech paleontologist, Dr. Chester Stock? Welcome to our Gypsum Cave field camp, Chet. How was the trip?
Don't ask. Good grief. Potholes, turning around potholes, two flat tires, the car overheating. If it hadn't have been for these two guys that I'm bringing to meet you, Chester, I would have turned around. Well, let me introduce my two colleagues. Okay, we have my young protege, Jim Thurston.
Welcome.
Paleontologist from
Mr.
Alberta,
Thurston.
Canada.
I was thrilled when Chet told me that he was bringing you to work with us. I'm very happy to have your paleontological expertise. It's pretty unusual for archaeologists and paleontologists to work together on a dig, but this project needs both our expertise. Welcome indeed.
I'm honored to meet you, Mr. Harrington, and I'm very excited to be here. Please, call me Jim.
Okay.
And representing our generous funding source, the Carnegie Foundation, is Mr. Howard Patterson.
Welcome.
Well, thank you, but plain old Howard to do just fine. It's my great pleasure to be here.
Now, I can stay with you folks for a few weeks, then I need to get back to campus. But Jim will stay on and help you with the fossils. He's an experienced paleontologist, a vertebrate paleontologist. He learned his skills on the plains of Alberta, digging up dinosaur bones. Indeka! It's so lovely to see you.
Welcome.
Oh, I see that Marc has dragged you way out here in the desert and put you to work.
That's right. I'm chief cook and bottle washer. And this is my niece, Birdie. She's our camp secretary, and she helps me with the cooking as well.
Very nice to meet you, Birdie.
Birdie made an important fossil discovery in the cave this morning. We'll show it to you after we get settled. And of course, these are our excellent crew members who you can meet in the morning.
We were hoping you guys would get here in time for supper. Birdie and I have cooked a special supper in honor of your arrival.
Well, that sounds wonderful. We are famished.
Well, welcome, all of you. Let's get you settled into some tents, and then we'll eat.
That was a wonderful meal, Marc. I see that Andeka is a great cook even in the field. Now, tell me about this cave you're excavating. How big is it?
It's big. Compared to other caves in the area, there are 5 chambers connected to one another. The biggest is over 100 feet long and about 60 feet wide with a high ceiling. Bertie, go get the skull you found from the collection tent. The entrance to the cave is just 150 yards up this ridge. We'll show you everything in the morning, but we're going to put you to work right now.
Well. Isn't this a beauty? It's not Nothrotheriops, the Shasta ground sloth.
And here are some of the dung boluses that are everywhere in the cave. Did these also come from what is it again?
Nothrotheriops. Yes, I'm sure that dung came from Nothrotheriops. The sloths seem to have spent a lot of time in the caves. That's where we usually find their bones, along with lots of dung boluses.
How big were they?
Well, this species is not one of the so-called giant ground sloths. They were about the size of a brown bear.
What did they look like? Where did they come from?
Well, I think I need a little libation to answer complex questions like that. Thanks to the nice ladies of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, we're not supposed to be drinking alcohol these days, but I just happen to have a little flask that I brought along for an auspicious occasion such as this. You won't tell on me now, will you? I'd like you to meet the sloth Nothrotheriops. She lived in this cave and she had a long tongue, yellow-brown hair from her toes to her top, covered her body in tangles and blobs. She wandered the landscape, and here's where she stopped. She ate lots of plants and she left lots of dung.
Let's drink a toast to honor the sloths, the beautiful sloths that lived in this cave. Here's to the creatures that came here before us, the wonderful ground sloths, so gentle and brave.
Ground sloths came up from south of the border. Their ancestors crossed on the Panama Bridge. These immigrant species of the Xenarthran order spanned all the way from Cali to Florida. They searched high and low for places to quarter, and they found one right here on Gypsum Cave Ridge.
Let's drink a toast to honor the sloths, the beautiful sloths that lived in this cave. Here's to the creatures that came here before us, the wonderful ground sloths, so gentle and brave.
I'm betting the sloths you described in your song met 2-legged hunters who hadn't belonged. They killed off your ground sloths and made them extinct. Now pass me your flask. I'm in need of a drink.
Let's drink a toast to honor the sloths, the beautiful sloths that lived in this cave. Here's to the creatures that came here before us, the wonderful ground sloths, so gentle and brave. Here's to the creatures that came here before us, the wonderful ground sloths, so gentle and brave.
So what do you think? What do you think about the cause of the extinction of the sloths and other Pleistocene species? Do you think, as I strongly suspect, that the sloths here at Gypsum Cave met human hunters face to face?
I'm very dubious about that. I think the warming of the climate at the end of the Pleistocene Ice Age was probably the cause of the extinction. You're going to need very persuasive evidence to convince me otherwise. Well, I'm ready to hit the sack. I'll see you all in the morning.
So, tell me, what's a Canadian boy doing out here in the Mojave Desert digging up sloth bones?
It's a simple story. Since I was a young boy, I didn't want to do anything except be a paleontologist. I loved the excitement of digging up bones of extinct animals and figuring out what they are and how they lived. I grew up in Western Canada, Alberta. Do you have any idea of what Alberta is like?
No. Tell me about it.
Well, it's a prairie, mostly. Beautiful, snowy mountains on the western side.
Where are the dinosaur bones?
They're out there on the prairie. Lots of dinosaur bones. My dad is the director of the Natural History Museum in Calgary. That's where all the dinosaur bones are stored.
That's weird. My father's also a museum director in Rochester, New York.
What kind of museum?
The Rochester Museum of Arts and Sciences. He's an archaeologist.
That's an amazing coincidence. We Canadians were slow to get into paleontology. Up until a few years ago, in fact, American paleontologists were the only ones digging up Canadian dinosaur bones. And they shipped them all off to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington.
Wow. What did you Canadians think about that?
Well, we didn't like it so much, as you can imagine. So we recruited a famous American dinosaur hunter. His name was Charlie Sternberg, to come up to Canada to begin a research program and teach us how to excavate dinosaur bones. I happened to be at the right place at the right time to be involved with all of that. I was 18 when Charlie arrived. I worked with him during 4 field seasons out on the plains of Alberta. He taught me how to find fossil bones and also how to properly dig them up and prep them in the lab.
Wow. That sounds so exciting. I grew up around bones and artifacts too. I was actually born in a tent during one of my father's excavations.
Really? We have a lot in common.
Yeah. When I was little, we lived in a tent every summer. I loved that. But that part of my life ended way too soon. When I was only 7, my parents got divorced, and my mom and I moved out to California to live with my aunt, my father's sister. That's Auntie Indeka, Uncle Mark's wife. I haven't seen my father in 16 years, but we keep in touch through letters. It's fun to be involved in archaeology again. It brings back happy memories of being with my father.
Sure. You know, my father took me camping when I was young, too.
How often did you go hunting for dinosaurs?
We'd go every summer for a couple months. First to a little town called Drumheller out on the plains. It was the last outpost of civilization before heading into the field. Loved being in Drumheller. It's the center of Canadian dinosaur country. One day I'm going back there. There are plenty of dinosaur bones nearby, just waiting to be dug up. I've been digging up fossils since I was a boy, out on the plains of Drumheller. I cleaned them all up and I put them in drawers. Small trilobites and huge dinosaurs, ammonites, fishes, and ichthyosaurs, forests and deep ocean dwellers. Some species live long, some pass away early. We may never know the reason or rhyme, but whether they're crooked or whether they're curly, they all disappear when it's
I love that song. Did you write it?
I sure did. It's the last time I was out on the plains.
Why did you leave Canada, Jim?
To advance my career. I wanted to get some experience working on Pleistocene mammals, except my timing was bad. If I had known that the US stock market was going to crash, I would have never left Calgary. There aren't a lot of jobs for paleontologists these days, but I got really lucky. Dr. Stock offered me this amazing job working with Mr. Harrington at Gypsum Cave. So, I was happy to take it. Here I am. Every fossil we find has a story to tell. Deep in the plains of Drumheller, there's always a lesson to learn that it brings. I try to decipher the song that it sings. I've made some mistakes, but I've learned many things, and there's something I wish I could tell her. Some species live long, some disappear early. We may never know the reason or rhyme, but whether they're crooked or whether they're curly, they all disappear when it's time. When it's time. When it's time. When it's time. They all disappear when it's time.
What was the real reason you left Alberta, Jim? Besides wanting to work on Pleistocene fossils.
Oh, so you're not only good at finding sloth skulls, you could read minds too. Well, to tell you the truth, Bertie, there were a couple other reasons. I'm a bit of a history buff, and I wanted to visit some historical sites here in your country. Also, I was in a relationship that didn't end well. I needed to get away.
I can relate to that last one.
So, why are you here, Bertie?
You know, that's an interesting question. On one level, I'm not really sure why I'm here. My aunt and uncle recruited me to work as the expedition secretary on this project. I think they thought it would be good for me. I haven't had much structure in my life lately, but I was hesitant. Then I had a dream about my father, and in my dream, he told me to go with Auntie Andeka, so I did. Good night, Jim. I need to get up early to help with breakfast.
Good night, Bertie. Alas, poor Nothrotheriops. Maybe we can discover why your species disappeared.
Jim, I'd like you and Howard to see what you can find here in room 3. I'm going to get the crew started on a trench in room 4.
Sure. I'll show you how we look for fossils, Howard. Howard?
Sorry,
Howard.
Jim, I'm sorry. I forgot my brush.
Come on.
Here's one for you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's pretty simple. You just pick a spot, take one of these brushes,
Okay.
gently brush away the sediment like this.
All right.
Keep a sharp lookout for any solid objects. If you see something that looks like a bone, please let me know.
Well, that sounds simple enough, even for a Tennessee country boy.
How did you end up representing the Carnegie Foundation anyway on this dig?
Well, it's actually a bit of a stretch to say that I'm really representing the Carnegie Foundation. My Uncle Josiah, he's a businessman. He's on the board of directors of the Carnegie Museum. He's also a big donor to the museum. And I went up to visit my aunt and uncle last spring. Uncle Josh took me to the museum, and we learned about an archaeological expedition that was being planned way out west in Nevada. The museum was helping to pay for that expedition, and I was real interested in that. So Uncle Josh said if it was okay with my parents, he might be able to pull some strings and arrange for me to be a volunteer worker on this here dig. Kind of like I was representing the foundation.
Oh, I see. Being a big shot donor comes with certain privileges.
Oh, yes, sir. But my father is dead set against it, of course. He wants me to complete my divinity degree as soon as possible and start working as an assistant pastor in the Rock Springs Baptist Church. I'm planning to do that too, but I'm not quite ready. Fortunately, my Uncle Josh intervened. He convinced my father that it would be a good idea for me to have an adventure out west. So I jumped on it like a chicken on a June bug, and here I am.
What do you think God has in mind for you to do?
Well, prove that the Bible is right and Darwin's theory is wrong. It's as simple as that. See, where I grew up in Rock Springs, Tennessee, we're all God-fearing religious folks. The Bible is our rock. It's our way of life. The scriptures are the word of God, and there ain't no two ways about that. Do you remember a few years back when that Dayton biology teacher, John Scopes, was arrested for teaching the students that people evolved from monkeys?
Hold it right there. Howard, nobody is saying that we evolved from monkeys. Scientists are only saying that humans and apes evolved from a common ancestor that lived millions of years ago.
Well, that sounds to me pretty much like saying we evolved from monkeys, and I can't accept that. We were all created in God's image, just like it says in the Bible. You see, Dayton is just a few miles down the road from Rock Springs, you know. We all listened to the trial on the radio, and we were real happy when Scopes was convicted. Everyone in Rock Springs thinks it's blasphemous to teach kids things that contradict the Bible, and so do I.
So, how do you propose to prove that the book of Genesis got the story right and Darwin got it wrong? That's a pretty tall order.
Well, I figure if I can dig up some dinosaur bones along with human bones, that will prove that humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time. They all were created in 6 days, just like it says in the Bible. And that will prove that Darwin was wrong, and your so-called geologic time scale is just a meaningless list of fancy words.
That's never gonna happen. These layers were deposited in the Pleistocene epoch. That's way too late for dinosaurs. You have no clue about Earth history.
There you go with your geology talk. Pleistocene, Christocene. That's just scientific mumbo-jumbo to me. Anyway, I'm hoping to find evidence that humans were here with the dinosaurs.
One more thing about finding fossils, Howard. You know, it helps if you sing to them.
Are you saying we should sing to the fossils? I think you're pulling my leg, Jim.
You know what?
Is this guy tuning his guitar on stage?
I'm just saying it can't hurt.
All right. Anyway, that's just about the craziest thing I've ever heard. Well, what kind of song would you sing?
Something like this. Come on, Bones, we know you're in there. It's time to show up what you're hiding. You've been buried for too long in this cave you lived and died in.
Well, I hope we find a dinosaur. I'm wishing with all my might. And human bones from Noah's flood that would prove the Bible's right.
Proves a word we rarely use except, of course, in math. Scientists are extra wary. Nature's secrets can be scary.
Come on, Bones, we know you're in there. It's time to show us where you're hiding. You've been buried for too long.
to show us where you're hiding. You've been buried for too long in this cave we lived and died in.
Well, I propose we wait and see what kind of bone we find. Besides the sloth skull bird he found, there's more deep in the ground.
Well, you're afraid that what we find will contradict your theory. I can hear the fear within your voice. The evidence will leave no choice. Come on, bones, we know you're in there. It's time to show us where you're hiding. You've been buried for too long in this cave you lived and died. There we go. Come on, bones, we know you're in there. It's time to show us where you're hiding. You've been buried for too long in this cave you lived and died in.
All right, not too bad, Jim. Not too bad. Oh, hey, I think I found something.
Oh my gosh. What is it? Oh, look at that. Yeah, see how that singing stuff worked?
Yeah.
You've discovered a fossil already. You've got a knack for this, Howard.
Well, what is it?
It's a tooth. It's a ground sloth. A ground sloth tooth.
What kind of animal?
A ground sloth tooth. See how it's flat on the top?
All right.
It's like a wooden peg. That's typical of ground sloth teeth. Nice work. We'll leave it there for now. We'll put a number on it, plot it later.
All right.
Let's keep brushing. There might be some later.
All right.
Oh, what have we here? Wow, this is fantastic. Looks like the skeleton of a newborn ground sloth. Look at these tiny bones. This cave was apparently where ground sloths came to give birth. Hey, Mr. Harrington! Mr. Harrington! You gotta come look at this.
What is it, Jim?
It looks like a neonate Nothrotheriops. The cave was apparently a denning cave for the sloths. This may be the first newborn ground sloth skeleton ever found.
Right there, go for it. Go for
Nice work, boys. Oh. Now, please find me an adult ground sloth with a spear point stuck in its spine. We need evidence that humans interacted with these animals. Keep up the good work, boys.
Thanks, boss.
See you later.
So, Jim, how old are these bones?
Maybe 10 or 20,000 years. There's no exactly way to tell how old they are.
I don't think so. The Earth isn't even that old.
Okay, here we go. Remind me what the Bible says about the age of the earth.
That's easy. But it's not just the Earth, of course. It's the whole dang universe. By studying the Bible, Bishop Ussher figured out that creation happened at noon on October 23rd, 4004 BC. It was a Sunday. See? It's right here in the margin, next to Genesis, chapter 1, before Christ, 4004. So, let's see. Creation was in 4004 BC. It's now the year of our Lord, 1930. 4004 plus 1930 is, if I'm adding right, 5,934. So, that's how old the Earth is, 5,934 years old.
Really? I had no idea it was dated so precisely.
Well, yes, sir.
Does the Bible have anything to say about species going extinct?
No, there's nothing about extinction in the Bible.
But you do concede that some species have gone extinct, don't you?
Sure, everybody knows that dinosaurs are extinct.
But that wasn't always common knowledge. Take Thomas Jefferson, for example. Jefferson had a real problem with the concept of extinction. That issue came up when someone sent him a box of fossil bones they dug up in a cave in Virginia.
What kind of bones?
I'm so glad you asked. They turned out to be the bones of a ground sloth, with teeth just like the one you found. Jefferson even wrote a scientific paper about it. But the crazy thing is, he couldn't accept the idea that ground sloths are extinct.
Why not? I thought Thomas Jefferson was supposed to be such a smart guy.
He was a smart guy. But even smart guys sometimes get stuck in a certain way of looking at things that are wrong. When you grow up thinking about things one way, and everyone around you reinforces that belief, well, it's hard to ever abandon that way of thinking, even when you're older and you're exposed to facts that don't support your entrenched worldview. And you know what tripped up Jefferson? It was his religious beliefs. He figured that God created all the creatures on earth, and of course, God loved all those creatures. Who would disagree with that? It made no sense to Jefferson that God would ever allow any of his precious creatures to disappear. Such a thing would ruin the perfection of nature. So Jefferson figured that God would never allow that to happen. That's the thing about entrenched worldviews. Sometimes they burrow into your brain. They grab a hold of your neurons, and they won't let go, even when the facts are in front of your face, are not compatible with them. Jefferson lived for another decade after it was pretty well established that ground sloths, mammoths, and a lot of other species were extinct. But he went to his grave, still clinging to his obsolete worldview.
Good morning, sunshine. How are you? Okay. Just okay? That's not my birdie.
Sleeping in a tent reminds me of Daddy. I miss him so much. Tell me again what Daddy was like when you were growing up.
I miss him too. You know, your daddy is just a year and a half younger than me. So we grew up together, having adventures together, playing together, and learning together. He learned archaeology by being an apprentice to your Uncle Marc in upstate New York. That's how I met Marc too.
I didn't know you met Uncle Marc through Daddy.
I did. I know you've been looking for some direction in your life. I want to remind you that our Seneca culture is matrilineal. We trace our kinship through our mother's lineage.
Of course. I forgot about that. Since Mom and I moved out west, away from Seneca country, I've lost touch with some of that cultural stuff.
And you and I, my dear, have a very rich heritage of strong female ancestors. Always remember, in addition to your daddy, these women are always with you, helping to guide your life.
Thanks. I'll remember.
I'm so glad you're here, Birdie.
Me too, Auntie Anne.
I have something disturbing to tell you. Your Uncle Marc. He told me last night that he's worried about trouble with the local Paiutes. He hadn't told me about it before. They don't want us here. Gypsum Cave is sacred to them, and they don't want us digging it up. They formally appealed to the governor to stop the excavation.
Really? Is that why there are no Paiutes on our crew? I was wondering about that.
Yes, no Paiutes would dig up their own sacred cave. It was the governor who encouraged Marc to excavate here, so he's on Marc's side. And the Paiutes have no legal rights or political power. Still, it puts our Indian excavators in a very awkward situation.
Not to mention you and me. We're Indians too. How do you feel about it?
I'm not happy about it, but I'm in an awkward position. Marc is my husband, and I need to support him. Sometimes I just have to bite my tongue. This is Marc's first excavation that I'm aware of, in which the dig site is sacred to a culture that is still using it. I wanted you to know. I hope that we can quickly finish this up to avoid any trouble. I wanted you to know, but please don't talk about this in camp. What are you and the crew going to be working on today? Bertie, can you please go fill this pot with water from the tank in the truck? What are we going to be working on?
Paiutes! I saw them. There's a group of Paiutes outside the cave. I looked up to the ridge towards the cave and I saw them.
What are they doing?
They're just standing there in a row in front of the cave as if they're trying to block the entrance. But one of them is walking down the ridge right towards our camp.
Okay, we'll just wait and see what it is he has to say. Hello. What brings you out here today?
I heard about some big project happening here at Pua'rinkan. I wanted to see for myself what's going on.
Sure. Welcome. We're archaeologists, excavating the cave for artifacts and fossils.
Do you know this cave is sacred to my people?
Yes, we know that. We want to find out the history of your people and the history of the cave. That's what archaeologists do. We're finding bones of extinct animals and artifacts that are thousands of years old. We may be able to find evidence that your ancestors came here before the ancient big animals became extinct.
We know the history of our people. Shinawab teaches us the history of our people. We have always been here. This is our home. I am Pua'aganti for my people, shaman in your language. And this is our sacred cave. It is where Pua'aganti receive our power and learn our songs. It's where our spirit helpers live, where we connect to the spirit world. I became Pua'aganti here. What gives you the right to come here and desecrate Pua'rinkan? Did it even occur to you to ask our permission to dig up Pua'rinkan?
The governor gave us permission. In fact, he encouraged me to excavate here. He even staked a mining claim here a couple years ago, so no one else would be able to excavate.
Oh, the governor gave you permission. The governor is 400 miles away. The governor doesn't know shit. How can the governor give you permission to desecrate our sacred cave? What kind of God do you have who teaches you have the right to desecrate a sacred place? I will sleep in Pua'rinkan tonight. Shinawab will talk to me as I sleep.
Okay, guys, we obviously have an issue here. Even though we have a permit from the governor to excavate, I don't want to provoke the Paiutes any more than necessary. So let's take a break today and not work in the cave. And Decca and I will drive into town for supplies. I'll telegraph the governor about the situation. You can all take the day off. Maybe walk down to the river, wash your clothes, take a swim. But please, be ready to get back to work tomorrow morning.
Hi, Jim. Can I see what you're drawing?
It's a Pleistocene scene near Gypsum Cave, showing all the animals we're excavating. Here's Nothrotheriops. Some horses are over here, and these are the camels.
It's beautiful. You're a talented artist. Why is this camel so small and has such a skinny neck compared to these other camels?
Because we're finding bones from two different camel species. The big one with the thicker neck is a famous Pleistocene camel named Camelops. smaller one is more like a llama. It may turn out to be a new species. I won't know that for sure until we get the bones into the lab at Caltech and compare them with other camel bones in the collection.
How in the world did camels and horses get into the cave? I mean, the entrance is so narrow and steep with a big vertical drop. I can't imagine a camel or a horse squeezing through that narrow entrance and then dropping down 4 or 5 feet in the dark.
I wondered about that too, but we're not excavating intact skeletons of camels and horses that died in the cave, like the neonat ground sloth that Howard and I found. We're mostly finding leg bones of camels and horses. I'm sure the ground sloths could have crawled in and out of the cave, but the camel and horse bones must have been dragged into the cave by large carnivores, probably saber-tooths or American lions. Just imagine if we'd been able to sit right here in this spot a few thousand years ago and watched. What amazing things we would have seen. Camelops is quietly grazing right here, right in front of us. Shh, don't let them know we're here. And suddenly, from out of nowhere, a band of atlatl-wielding men appear. They surround one of the camels, flinging their atlatl darts. The camel bellows out in pain. Ooh! The wounded camel kicks one of the hunters in the stomach. Ooh! Before galloping off into the desert, bleeding profusely. In hot pursuit. That's the kind of scene I reconstruct in my mind's eye as we excavate camel bones and artifacts in the cave. It's an occupational hazard of paleontologists, I guess, imagining scenes like that from the distant past. Whoa. What kind of scene are you imagining, Birdie?
I'm trying to imagine a future we could have. An Indian girl and a Canadian man. I'm trying to imagine a future we should have. I dream of the future whenever I can. I'm trying to imagine a future we could have. I dream of the future whenever I can.
Well, I hope you all had a relaxing holiday. And Decca and I had a nice dinner at the Overland Hotel in Las Vegas, the fanciest hotel in town. I also exchanged telegrams with the governor. I told him about the progress of our excavation and about the trouble with the Paiutes.
How did he respond?
Just as I predicted. He's very excited about the excavation and how our discoveries might enhance the reputation of Nevada. Regarding the Paiutes, he said we should ignore them. If they give us any more trouble, he said he'd have the sheriff in Las Vegas send some deputies out here to make sure our project continues without interruption.
What are your thoughts about the problems with the Paiutes?
I don't want to talk about that right now. I just want to talk about us. How did I get here? Where am I going? How did I end up at this very place? What is the purpose? What is the reason? How can I explain this smile on my face?
How did I get here? My cup's overflowing. What special force saved me from being too late? There must be a purpose. There must be a reason for me to be here now. It has to be fate. Who am I kidding? What am I thinking? Is this romance doomed from the start? I'm an Indian and you are a white man. I should end this if I value my heart.
That's not important. My eyes won't stop blinking. I can hardly believe this is happening to me. Strange new sensations stirring inside me. How this will end up, I can't wait to see.
How did we get here? Where are we going? How did we end up at this special site? You are the purpose. You are the reason. Nothing else matters. It has to be right. You are the purpose.
You are the reason.
Nothing else matters. It has to be right.
Any sight of our Paiute visitor?
No, maybe he left in the night.
I doubt that. I'm afraid we haven't seen the last of him.
Don't look up. Here he comes now. See him coming. But don't.
He must be really far.
What did I miss?
Nothing yet.
Oh, Jesus. Jesus. Fuck.
There he is.
Don't look, don't look.
Don't look. Here he comes now.
Shinawab came to me in my dreams. he told me the spirit helpers are leaving Pua'rinkan because you are disturbing your sacred home. You must stop digging here. You have no moral right to dig up our sacred cave. Shinawab told me very bad things will happen to people who are digging. You people who are digging, very bad things, very bad things.
What did I miss?
We'll tell you later. Let's have breakfast and get this day started. We've got an excavation to complete.
Tell me, what happened?
The shaman came back from the cave. He said that very bad things will happen if we continue to excavate. I'm frightened, Jim. I don't want you to go back into the cave. Shamans have mystical powers. I can feel it. Please don't go back into the cave.
That's just superstition. It's just superstition. I have to go back. It's my job. Love you, Birdie. Don't worry. I'll be okay.
I love you too, Jim. Please be careful. I won't stop worrying until you come back.
You know, it was cool being in the cave today. I'm really excited to write an article about the excavation. I think this story could really launch my career as a full story writer. But I need to know more about the people involved. If I'm going to sell this article to a magazine editor, I need a human interest angle. I need to be able to see this project through the eyes of the participants. What was it like to be here in 1930? To be part of the team? Can you tell me anything about the personalities and the motivations of some of the participants?
Well, I've mostly focused on the paleontology, but Harrington and Stock are well-known scientists. I'm sure you can find out about their personalities and motivations if you dig a bit into the archives, that is. For example, I bet the Southwest Museum has Harrington's field notes from the Gypsum Cave expedition. There might be some human interest tidbits in there.
Good suggestion. I'll definitely check that out. You know, I was intrigued when you mentioned that you had some special connection to this cave. Tell me, what's that about?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was waiting for the right time to tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the people involved in the Gypsum Cave excavation, Jim Thurston and Bertie Parker, are my great-grandparents.
What?
I am really impressed with the work all of you are doing. The fossils and artifacts you're finding are just spectacular. Basketry, projectile points, atlatl darts, and the fossils too, of course. Really amazing stuff. Even musical instruments, I understand. I'd like to see that end-blown flute you were telling me about.
Sure. Bertie, can you get that long flute, the one we found in room 4?
You are really putting Gypsum Cave on the map, Mark.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bertie. Wow. A bird bone flute. It's much bigger than I expected. What kind of a bird do you think it came from, Jim?
It's the radius of a long-legged wading bird, probably a heron or egret. The Colorado River is just a few miles away. Probably came from there.
Is it okay if I try it out?
Sure. Play us a tune.
It makes me wonder who was the last person to play this flute. Whoever it was, he was looking at the same night sky we're looking at tonight.
Yes, but to him the stars and planets had a much different meaning.
Maybe it was a her.
Right you are. Maybe it was a her.
Well, look at the Milky Way. It's like a ribbon of stars across the sky, 1 billion stars strewn across the sky.
Yeah, the stars are a special bonus for us out here when we're in the field, especially here in the desert, where the sky is so clear. My father was a professor of astronomy at the University of Michigan, so I grew up looking at the night sky with my father. Dinner table conversations often revolved around new discoveries in astronomy. He always wanted me to see deeper into space, and he passed along his passion for probing space and time to me. I've always been into history of humanity and what drives my curiosity. My father suffered from dementia. I might be getting that myself one of these days, which cut short his professional career. Sometimes I feel his spirit pushing me to work harder, to make important discoveries, to achieve the recognition that eluded him. I brought my field telescope with us on this trip so we could examine the night sky.
My favorite constellation, Orion the Hunter. There he is, this beautiful belt, 3 bright stars.
As an archaeologist, when I look up at the night sky, I always think about ancient cultures. People like our Gypsum Cave flute player, doing the same thing thousands of years ago. The stars and the planets were so important in their lives. For ancient peoples, the night sky was like a picture gallery of messages from the gods. I'm also interested in how Native American cultures today view the stars and planets. Danny here is a Hopi from Arizona. Danny, can you tell us a little bit about what you see in the night sky?
Well, I'm not very comfortable talking about my cultural traditions, Mr. Harrington. But I can tell you what those 3 stars represent in our culture. To Jim, he called it Orion's belt. But for us, those 3 stars are a reflection in the night sky of the 3 mesas of our homeland. The stars that form other parts of other constellations are the reflection of other mesas and other rock spires within our homeland.
Fascinating stuff. Well, how about showing us something through your telescope, Mark?
Yes, let's do that.
Say, what's the name of that bright star to the upper right of Orion?
That's not a star, my friend. That's Jupiter. It will be a good place to start, the moons of Jupiter. Ah, yes. Take a look.
I can see 4 tiny bright dots, all in a row, next to a big colorful circle. Are those really moons of Jupiter?
They sure are.
That's amazing. I didn't even know other planets had moons.
Nobody knew that until around 300 years ago when Galileo built himself a telescope and saw the moons of Jupiter. Up until then, nearly everyone thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, and they thought everything orbited around the Earth.
Really? Why would anyone believe such a thing?
Because that's what they were taught. I want you all to see something else that's very significant. You see that group of 5 stars? Forms a W in the sky? That's a constellation, Cassiopeia, the Queen. Now look at the lower 3 stars, Cassiopeia, and imagine they form an arrow pointing to the left. The cluster of stars those 3 stars are pointing to form the constellation Andromeda, the daughter of Queen Cassiopeia. And within the constellation Andromeda is a spiraling fuzzball. Let me see if I can find it in the telescope. Yeah, there it is. What a beautiful sight. It's one of the most significant objects in the night sky, the Andromeda Galaxy. A swirling spiral of billions of stars. I want you all to see it.
I'd love to see that. I see it. That's really another galaxy?
It sure is.
Wow. So beautiful.
My friends, we are looking at the first celestial object ever detected beyond the boundaries of our own Milky Way galaxy. And that's really a big deal. And listen to this. An American astronomer, his name is Edwin Hubble, recently figured out a very clever way to measure huge distances in space. The brightness of some stars fluctuates in a predictable pattern over time. Hubble figured out a way to use that fluctuation to measure distance.
Really? I haven't heard about that.
Now here's where the Andromeda spiral comes into the story. When Hubble used his method to measure the distance to stars in the Andromeda spiral, the answer he got knocked him on his keister. They are more than 2 million light years away. The light that we are seeing tonight from that galaxy began its journey through space more than 2 million years ago.
I just read an article about that. Hubble was quoted as saying that his discovery would not have been possible without the brilliant work of a woman astronomer. A woman astronomer named Henrietta Leavitt at Harvard College.
Never heard of her. I only know about Hubble. Just think of all the changes that have happened on Earth since these photons left the Andromeda Galaxy. The evolution of humans, extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna, rise and fall of ancient civilizations, all while this light was traveling through space.
2 million years? Wow. Say, Howard, my man, how does that fit into your Genesis story?
It's very simple. When God created the universe 5,934 years ago, next October 23rd, he created light beams that were already en route. Maybe to create the illusion that they started their journey 2 million years earlier.
Come on, Howard. You can't possibly really believe that. Is God so duplicitous that he would do such a thing?
I was taught to believe everything in the Bible, Mr. Harrington. Jim calls it my worldview.
The really big significance of Hubble's discovery was that it showed that the Andromeda Galaxy lies beyond the boundary of our own Milky Way galaxy, which is about 1 million light years in diameter. Before Hubble's discovery, astronomers thought that the Milky Way galaxy was a whole ball of wax, the whole universe. They had never seen anything farther away than 1 million light years. Now that we know that the Milky Way is just a garden variety galaxy in an immense universe of galaxies, it was a mind-blowing discovery. like growing up in a small town and suddenly discovering an amazing big world beyond the boundaries of your childhood village.
It makes a person feel tiny and insignificant.
Andromeda galaxy, distant spiraling wonder, sending us photons from billions of stars. Uncounted years, your starlight has beckoned at 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. No other starlight has traveled so far. So thanks, Edwin Hubble, for bursting our bubble. You helped us see double the distance in space. In space, time is distance. Light feels no resistance. At nature's insistence, it wins every race.
Andromeda light, I've been waiting to see you. So bright in the night, but you fade in the dawn. For 2 million years you've been rushing to greet me. A perfect convergence of timing to meet me. I'm here for a moment and then I'll be gone. So thanks, Edwin Hubble, for bursting our bubble. You helped us see double the distance in time. Our stay here is fleeting, our days are retreating. I'll treasure this meeting till my closing bell chimes. 2 million years is to her but a second. The questions I ask while Andromeda swirls. When did people come here? What clues did they leave me? And when I have answers, will colleagues believe me? Seems so important in my tiny world. So thanks, Edwin Hubble, for bursting my bubble. You helped me see things in the grand scheme. I get it, but Eddie, I'm just not quite ready. My focus is steady, I'll stick with my dream. Thanks, Edwin Hubble, for bursting my bubble. You helped us see double the distance in time. Our stay here is fleeting, our days are retreating. We'll treasure this meeting till our closing bells chime. It's taken a few weeks of hard work, but you boys have sure dug us a fine trench. Let me show you why we need it. You see this interval right here?
It is an undisturbed zone underneath the dung layer. Down here within the disturbed zone, I found some burnt sticks. Let's see. Right about here. Yeah, here's one.
Well, why is that such a big deal?
Because I strongly suspect that this burnt stick is the remains of a hearth, a fire pit. I think early arriving humans in North America had a campfire right here in the cave. If this is really a hearth that was later covered by sloth dung, that means the sloths were still around when the humans were here. That will revolutionize American archaeology.
Come on, Mr. Harrington. A burnt stick isn't really an artifact, is it? I mean, maybe there was a fire in the cave that started outside the cave, caused by a lightning strike or something. It seems to me like you're grasping at straws, or burnt sticks, so to speak.
You're right, Howard. Burnt sticks are not unequivocal artifacts. Of course, I am hoping that we can find diagnostic artifacts, but it's a clue. I'm beginning to worry. We're finding lots of artifacts, and our trench in room 4 exposes a thick layer of sloth dung. But so far, we found no unequivocal artifacts below the dung layer. Just a few burnt sticks.
Be patient, dear. It's still early. Your big breakthrough could happen any day.
Of course you're right. I know that on one level, but I can't help being concerned. I'm not sleeping well, thinking, what if I'm wrong about the early arrival of people in America? What if they weren't here at Gypsum Cave before the Pleistocene fauna went extinct? What if nothing important results from this excavation? I've invested so much time and money in this project. My reputation is at stake.
What if? What if? What if? You can't predict the future. Stop worrying. Stop worrying so much. Just go to bed. Good night. Good night, dear.
I can't predict how this will all turn out. I have my hopes and I have my doubts. Maybe the Pleistocene big game were gone when people came. Were they gone when people arrived in America? Were they gone when people arrived in America? I was sure this cave was the site where I would find what I needed to prove me right. But perhaps the Pleistocene big game were gone when people came. Were they gone when people arrived in America? Were they gone when people arrived in America? Did Siberian hunters wander far and wide? Did they cross Beringia and reach the other side? Before mastodons and mammoths and camels and sloths slipped into oblivion. Maybe I was wrong all along.
Amy,
Come on.
you're not serious. Jim and Bertie were really your great-grandparents?
Well, I'm dead serious. Jim and Bertie. Well, I guess that's why I needed to visit the site. This is where my great-grandparents fell in love. And if it hadn't been for the Gypsum Cave excavation, I literally would not exist.
Well, I am stunned. How long have you known this?
Well, I've known for a long time that my great-grandfather was a paleontologist. That's partly what inspired me to study paleontology. But I didn't know any details about him until a couple years ago. Shortly before my grandmother died, I asked her lots of questions about family history. I wanted to write it all down before it was lost. But when I asked her about her father, she was very hesitant to talk about him. The more she hesitated, the more curious I became, so I continued to probe. Eventually, she told me that her parents had met when they were both working at an archaeological site in Nevada.
Ooh, bingo.
Yeah, she didn't know the name of the cave, but it was easy enough for me to figure out that it was Gypsum Cave. She told me that her father, James Thurston, had died when she was a baby, so she had no memory of him. Her mother remarried, this time to a Hollywood actor.
Ooh.
And she even did some acting herself. When I was growing up, I mostly heard her tell stories about actors and movie sets.
Anything else about the Gypsum Cave connection?
Well, one more thing. She said that her mother, Bertha, everyone called her Bertie, had told her that there was very bad karma associated with the place where she met her first husband. She was sure that that was why he had died so young. And that was why my grandma was so hesitant to tell me about their courtship. She warned me very sternly to never go to the place where my great-grandparents met. So, of course, I had to come and see the place for myself. Oh, here. Sweet Amy, she told me, come sit down beside me. I'll tell you a story about my father, Jim. He died so young when I was a baby, leaving me and my mama. I never knew him. A fossil man, my father, Jim. They say was handsome, tall, and slim, but excavating in a cave sent him early to his grave. The cave was somewhere out in Nevada. That's where he had a job for a while, digging up fossils, small and colossal. Finding a femur, I guess, made him smile. Jim fell in love with my mama, Bertie. She didn't care if he got dirty, but excavating in that cave sent him early to his grave. Granddaughter Amy, I'm telling this story about your great-grandparents and what might have been, but promise me one thing, that you'll never go there. That cave stole the future from Bertie and Jim. Jim fell in love with my mama, Bertie. He died before the age of 30, excavating in that cave, sent him early to his grave, sent him early to his grave.
Holy sloth dong, Amy. I think I have my human interest story.
I know everyone is concerned about the incident with the Paiute shaman, but I want you to try to ignore it. The Paiutes have no legal basis to stop us from excavating here. We're making great progress, and we're not going to let some Paiute shaman interrupt this important scientific work. So let's keep our focus on the project. I'm sure this whole incident will blow over.
Well, now that you mention it, I have a question about the science you're doing here. In my physics class, I learned about the scientific method. My teacher said science is either physics or stamp collecting. I guess what he meant is that physics is the model for how science is supposed to be done, test hypotheses with controlled, repeatable experiments, minimize the variables, all that science stuff. My teacher's favorite scientist was Isaac Newton. He had a quote by Newton posted on the wall in the classroom. "If I have seen farther than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." I must have read that quote 200 times. Digging up fossils and artifacts is really fun and interesting, but it's not at all like physics. It does seem more like stamp collecting. Where are your hypotheses? Where are your experiments? Where's the replication of results?
That's a very perceptive question, and I'm really glad you brought it up. The answer is that science done by archaeologists and paleontologists is a very different kind of science than what is done by physicists. This is called historical science.
Okay, but what about hypotheses and experiments? Scientists are supposed to test hypotheses, aren't they? I don't see us doing that here at Gypsum Cave.
Sure we are. We're testing my hypothesis that humans were here at Gypsum Cave in the Pleistocene before ground sloths and other species went extinct. And we're just beginning to find evidence that supports that hypothesis.
A big difference is, unlike physics experiments, our experiments happened before we arrived on the scene. It's like a crime scene investigation. Take the extinction of dinosaurs, for example. They went extinct millions of years ago. That extinction was a grand experiment. Compared to, say, a physics experiment, it was very messy. We didn't design the experiment, we couldn't control the variables, and we can't replicate the extinction. That makes it much harder to explain the results, but it was still an experiment conducted by nature. And we construct hypotheses to explain it. The data surrounding the experiment are hidden in the fossils and rocks.
Right! We have to be clever enough to construct hypotheses that can be tested with the data we tease out of the bones and rocks. Anyone can come along later and gather more data from the same rocks and fossils. That's why we keep them in. We keep fossils and rock samples in museum collections, so future researchers can study them. Their studies may support or falsify our records. If they can construct a new hypothesis if they want, that's historical science.
Historical sciences differ from physics. Stay with me a while and I'll give you specifics. Physicists study events in a vacuum with meters and gadgets they keep in the back room. For them, replication's a really big item. Replicate ad infinitum. Electrons, protons, Bohr's quantum theory. They put me to sleep, ever so dreary.
Now contrast all of that with historical science. Our experiments happened so long ago. We're down on our knees while they're standing on giants. They're scanning the skies while we're digging down below.
Well, you can't replicate an ancient occurrence. Go backward in time, you have my assurance.
The dinos are gone.
Well, except for those flapping.
To extinct them again just ain't gonna happen.
But we can reconstruct
past events in our minds and test our constructions with the data we find. It's an epistemological blend of history and science we're doing, my friend. And that's why we call it historical science. Our experiments happened so long ago.
Some might say our methods are out of compliance with experiments that Newton or Bohr would design. We're testing the idea that here in this cave, people came early and how they behaved, that they hunted and butchered Pleistocene mammals,
Ground sloths and mammoths,
horses and camels. That's my working hypothesis supported by data.
It isn't yet proven.
That'll come later. Now you see why we call it historical science. Our experiments happened so long ago. We're down on our knees while they're standing on giants. They're scanning the skies while we're digging down below. They're scanning the skies while we're digging down below. Over there.
You know, it's very interesting to me to hear you, scientists, discuss your perceptions of time. We, Hopis, have a very different perception of time. In fact, sometimes we call it Indian time.
What do you mean?
Well, it's hard for me to explain without being able to use the vocabulary of my native tongue. It's just that we view time very differently than you do. For example, there isn't even a word for time in the Hopi language. So it's difficult for me to explain a concept that has no name. When I was learning English, it was difficult to learn the difference between past tense and present tense verb forms. In the Hopi language, we don't have verb forms expressing a difference between what happened in the past and what happened in the present. The past is continuous with the present. What you think of as a length of time, for us, is a relationship between events. I don't quite know when I was born in the language of the white man's years, but I know that I was born in a time of abundant rain and good maize crop, shortly before my grandfather died.
So, you don't know how old you are?
No. I don't know in terms of white man's years. It's simply not important in my culture. The life cycle of each being is completed in accord with its own unique design. In my mind, Earth Mother herself is a living being. She has her own life cycle. To us, beings are immortal. The spirit of my grandfather is still with me, even though his spirit has left his body. Remember, I said that our verbs don't distinguish between past tense and present tense forms. We also don't distinguish between beings that are living in the past and those that are still living.
Well, what about the animals that died here in Gypsum Cave? Jim says thousands of years ago. The ones whose bones were excavated. Those species are extinct. Are they still with us in Hopi culture?
Spirits of grandfathers, spirits of grandmothers. Of course, they're with us. They're with us today. The spirits of ancestors are always here with us, guiding our journey, showing the way.
Well, what about the animals that lived in the past? The ground sloths and mammoths, the Pleistocene horses. Are their spirits still here even though they're extinct? Did the spirits survive extinct causing forces?
In Hopi culture, spirits are eternal. Spirits of people and animals too. The concept of extinction is a foreign and strange concept. How could the species that lived here have changed? It's a disturbing idea, and I can't quite conceive it. Extinction is weird. I'm not sure I believe it.
Well, that's just like Thomas Jefferson, right, Jim? Jim told me that Thomas Jefferson also had trouble with the concept of extinction, and for the same reason. It conflicted with his view of nature, with his religion.
That's right, Howard. Great comparison.
It is hard to be living in two different worlds. I'm a Hopi man at the core of my being. We're desecrating a site that is sacred to others. I'm troubled by things that I'm doing and seeing, trampling the rights of my brothers and sisters.
I've been wondering how the crew feels about excavating caves in general. Isn't it somewhat spooky, Danny, just being deep underground?
No, it's not spooky. If you will, caves have a special place in Hopi culture. Our storytellers tell us that we once lived in caves. Before we emerged into the current world, the fourth world, we lived in a cave world. So every time I emerge from Gypsum Cave at the end of the day into the lingering rays of the sun, in my mind, I'm reenacting the emergence of my people. That's a happy feeling. And when I descend back into the cave in the morning, I just concentrate on the work to be done.
I like Danny's description of the Hopi origin story, that their ancestors emerged from caves. You all's origin story is that we evolved from monkeys, and mine is that we are created by God, as described in the book of Genesis.
Howard, no scientist is saying we evolved from monkeys.
Okay, Jim, I'm just teasing you. Darwin did say something like that, though. But here's my point. Different cultures have different origin stories, each of which is meaningful and powerful within the context of their own culture. In my culture, Rock Springs, Tennessee culture, the only origin story that makes sense is the one written down in the Bible. To me, you all's Darwinian story is just as quaint and fantastical as Danny's story of his Hopi ancestors emerging from caves. And I mean no disrespect to Danny when I say that. His origin story has deep meaning in his own culture, but no meaning in mine, and vice versa.
But here's the difference, Howard. The Darwinian origin story is not just a story that was passed down orally from generation to generation around the campfire. Ever since the Enlightenment in the 18th century, Western culture has placed great importance on empirical evidence, on science, to support what we consider to be true. We no longer blindly accept whatever the priest or pastor or shaman or the president says. We look for supporting evidence. That's where the Darwinian origin story differs from the biblical origin story or the Hopi origin story. It's supported by empirical evidence that everyone can see. The bones we're digging up here at Gypsum Cave, for example, are perfectly compatible with the Darwinian paradigm. And they crap all over your story of your Genesis fairy tale. Your young Earth creationist origin story may be meaningful in your insulated Rock Springs, Tennessee culture, just as Danny's origin story has meaning on Second Mesa. But in the context of modern 20th century Western culture, it's a pre-Enlightenment antique. With all due respect, Howard, I think your people must have slept through the Enlightenment.
Maybe we did, Howard. Maybe we did. But we never abandoned our faith in God. And in my insulated culture, that's more important than a pile of bones. Good night.
It's not about abandoning your faith in God, Howard. It's about using your God-given brain to think for yourself.
I grew up believing this was the answer. I knew for certain that this was the way. Pay no attention to science, they told me. Step out of your circle and you'll go astray. I try to be faithful, I want to believe. I've happily followed your light from above, but I wrestle with questions that churn deep inside. Am I worthy of your love? Worthy of your love. I signed up for this project to search for some answers and prove to myself that Darwin was wrong, that everything here in the Genesis story and everything here in the Bible is strong. I try to be faithful, I want to believe. I've happily followed your light from above, but I wrestle with questions that churn deep inside. Am I worthy of your love? Well, I try to be faithful, I want to believe. I've happily followed your light from above, but I'll wrestle with questions that are deep inside. Am I worthy of your love? Worthy of your love. God, please tell me, is my worldview wrong? And if it is, how will I ever go home?
Mr. Harrington, take a look at this.
What is it?
It's a segment of a painted dart shaft, and it was lying under the layer of sloth dung. This is it, boys. This is what we've been looking for. An unequivocal artifact lying stratigraphically below the sloth dung. And look, here's another one. I can hardly believe it. Eureka, we found it, the artifact. Eureka, we found it, the artifact I needed to prove to the world the shaft was flung. The shaft was flung before the dawn. Eureka, we found it, the artifact. Eureka, we found it, the artifact. I finally found the answer to the question I've been asking. The people came to hunt big game. My fame will be everlasting. I finally found the answer to the question I've been asking. The people came to hunt big game. My fame will be everlasting. Eureka, we found it, the artifact. Eureka, we found it, the artifact I needed to prove to the world the shaft was flung. The shaft was flung before the dawn. Look what we found. Fragments of painted dart shafts lying below the layer of sloth dung. It's my big breakthrough. It's what I've been looking for my whole career. Unequivocal artifacts that are older than the sloth dung. I can hardly believe it.
That's wonderful, dear. Congratulations.
Today we discovered the first solid evidence that humans arrived in the New World before the extinction of the ground sloths and other Ice Age animals. Remember this day, everyone. You've all made an important contribution to American archaeology, and this is just the beginning. I'm certain we'll be finding more evidence of the early presence of humans. This is just the beginning. I can't describe how good it makes me feel. It is vindication. Write some notes here.
Knock, knock.
Come in. Come in. Danny, that was a fantastic discovery today. Great work. Now what's on your mind?
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I'm glad I was able to help you. Mr. Harrington, the guys and I have been talking today, and they wanted me to be the one to tell you this.
Tell me what, Danny?
It's hard for me to tell you this, especially today, but we all have decided that we can't work in the cave anymore.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I understand the crew's discomfort, but let's talk about this.
When we have been in the cave in the past few days, we can feel this Paiute spirited helpers screaming at us. I tried to imagine how it would be if Paiute diggers, or really any diggers, were to excavate a sacred Hopi site against the wishes of my people. I hope that you can understand that, Mr. Harrington.
This excavation is important, not just for archaeologists and the history of humans in North America, but for the Paiutes themselves, even if they don't realize it yet.
But we're all in a very difficult situation. We need this job to help support our families back home. But how can we do that? By turning our backs on our cultural traditions. How can we do that without trampling on the graves of our ancestors and defiling their spirits?
Our results will enhance the fame of the Paiute tribe. It will put them on the map, so to speak.
We have no other choice but to respect the wishes of the Paiutes and stop excavating their sacred cave. So we've decided to leave the excavation and go back home to our families.
I think we're all exhausted. Let's just take a break for a couple days in celebration of today's discoveries. We can all go into Las Vegas, take showers, and clean up, have dinner at the Overland Hotel, and then come back here refreshed and find some more Pleistocene artifacts.
But our concerns are much more deeper than that. We've made our decision. I'm very sorry, Mr. Harrington. I'm very, very sorry.
I understand, Danny. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I understand. Thank you for telling me. Shit. 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 Now what do I do? My excavation is falling apart. Just when I'm beginning to find what I'm after. Maybe the project was doomed from the start. We started too late. We should have worked faster. I'm just beginning to firm up my case that people arrived here sooner than later, that people and sloths met here face to face. My legacy could have grown greater and greater.
Your legacy's solid, but my patience is waning. So call it a win and stop your complaining. You've got what you've wanted. Be happy you found it. The project is finished. There's no way around it.
I don't have enough data. My colleagues won't buy it. I need more artifacts, or I won't even try it. The project's not finished. This is no time to end it. Quitting right now, there's no way to defend it.
Get a hold of yourself. I don't want to hear it. Have some respect for indigenous spirits. The cave has revealed the secrets it's hiding. It may not reveal others whether or not you're inviting. The excavation is over and I'm going home. If you want to continue, you'll be here alone. You've trampled all over Paiute tradition. What the hell did you expect? Please show some contrition.
Listen up, everybody. I was hoping we could complete this excavation by early summer, but here we are in late May, quite a long way to go. It's already getting hot, too hot to sleep comfortably at night. And for Andeka and Bertie, working all day in camp, it's unbearably hot. So I've decided that beginning today, this excavation will take a hiatus during the summer months. We'll come back in the fall and finish it up. I'll pay everyone an extra month's wages so you can all go home and take care of your families during these hard times. Any of you who want to come back and work with us in the fall are welcome. Please write to me at the Southwest Museum by August 1st. Otherwise, I'll hire someone else to take your place. I appreciate everyone's hard work. Gypsum Cave is sure to become a famous archaeological site where we were the first to discover that humans coexisted with Pleistocene animals. You can be proud of that. You were part of this excavation.
End.
Well, Harrington and Jim came back in the fall with a crew of mostly non-Native Americans. There was no shortage of men looking for work in those days. They finally closed it down in early 31, having damn near dug up the whole freaking cave. Personally, I wish they had left more of the cave floor intact for future generations of researchers, for my generation. We have different methods now, and we're asking different research questions. I'm not very pleased with Harrington for not leaving at least some of the cave unexcavated, but apparently that was not part of the research ethic in those days.
But suppose Harrington had left some of the cave unexcavated. Would it be ethical for you to begin a new excavation against the wishes of the Paiutes?
Whoa, you journalists ask such complicated questions, Peter.
All I'm saying is that Native Americans have a lot more political power now than they did in 1930. Would the Paiutes even allow you to begin a new excavation? And would you do it against their wishes, like Harrington did?
Well, I suppose if the Paiutes said no, I'd honor their wishes, as if I would have a choice. That would be the ethical thing to do. You know, but I can also put myself in Harrington's boots. He was pushing hard to address an important scientific question, and he did what he had to do. Our culture celebrates people like him who doggedly pursue their dreams, even if they step on some toes in the process.
Oh, Amy, stepping on toes is not the right metaphor. Harrington was bulldozing the rose garden. Even though his wife was Native American, it didn't seem to bother him to trample all over the cultural traditions of the Paiutes.
Sit down, you're right, of course. The ethics of archaeology and paleontology have evolved quite a lot since Harrington's day.
We'll spend this morning breaking down camp and loading the truck. This afternoon we'll drive into Las Vegas and then we'll head for home. And now I think Jim and Bertie have something to say.
It's impossible to keep secrets around here, so everybody knows that Birdie and I have been spending a lot of time together. Well, what you don't know is that we're getting married!
Yay!
We don't have a date yet. It'll be sometime this summer in Pasadena. I'll be working on the artifacts with Mr. Harrington at the Southwest Museum, and Jim will be working at Caltech with Dr. Stock, studying the bones we've been collecting here at Gypsum Cave.
His legacy. Did the excavation end up the way he wanted it to? Is he the archaeologist who is known to be the first to document an early presence of people in North America?
Well, now that's a really interesting question. The story actually ended badly for both scientists.
Aww.
Yeah, for my great-grandfather as well as for Harrington. Jim Thurston died just a few months after the excavation ended, very soon after my grandmother was born.
Uncle Mark, Auntie Ann, thank you for coming.
Of course. Of course. How are you feeling, Jim? Bertie suggested we come for a visit.
Do you know the cause of his death?
I actually got a copy of his death certificate to find out. But the cause of death is illegible. I doubt that the doctor had any idea of what killed him. My guess is that he died from the virus that is transmitted in vaporized pack rat urine, the one I warned you about. As nearly as I've been able to determine, his symptoms are a good match for the symptoms caused by that virus. But that virus was only recently identified. So in 1931, his doctor wouldn't have known about it. Pack rats love caves, and digging in Gypsum Cave certainly would have exposed him to vaporized rat urine.
The doc gave me some painkillers, so I'm doing all right, I guess, under the circumstances. How's the Gypsum Cave report coming along, Mr. Harrington?
It's coming along fine. I've got the artifacts pretty well described, but I'm counting on you to get well and describe the bones.
I'd love to do that if I'm able.
As for Harrington, among paleontologists, he is best known today for getting the Gypsum Cave story completely wrong.
Oh.
It's certainly not the legacy he hoped for.
Well, what do you mean? How did he get it wrong?
Well, it's a puzzling story. When Harrington found painted dart shaft fragments beneath a layer of sloth dung, he was certain that they were older than the dung. That's the principle of superposition. Any archaeologist or paleontologist could have concluded the same thing. But around 25 years later, in the 1950s, when radiocarbon dating was developed, both sloth dung and dart shaft fragments were dated, and guess what? The dung turned out to be around 11,000 years old, and the artifacts that Harrington found below the dung were only around 3,000 years old. So even though the sloth dung was on top of the darts, the dung was a lot older.
But how can that be? I thought the things you find low in the pile are always older than the things you find above them.
Well, they are, almost always. But once in a while, strange things happen and we get fooled. The stratigraphy in Gypsum Cave is evidently one of those bizarre situations, and Harrington somehow got bamboozled.
So are you saying that humans actually didn't arrive in North America before the ground sloths and other Pleistocene animals went extinct? Was Harrington wrong about that?
Howard! What a wonderful surprise. Come in.
Hi, Birdie. Andika, how are you?
Good to see you. Nice to see you.
And good to see you too, Mr. Harrington. And you too, Jim. How are you doing, my Darwinian friend? And who is this little person?
This is Amelia. She's just 2 months old.
Wow, what a beautiful blessing. Hi, Amelia.
It's wonderful to see you again, Howard. All the way from Tennessee. I can hardly believe you're really here.
Yeah, Bertie sent me a telegram telling me about the baby and about your illness. I just had to come see you, Jim. And Bertie and your baby too, of course. There were no two ways about that.
You know, I think about you often. How are things in Rock Springs?
Well, we're suffering from the depression, of course, like everywhere else. Jobs are hard to find, so I was really tempted to accept an offer to become an assistant pastor of our church. But I ended up turning it down. My time with y'all at Gypsum Cave helped me sort out some things. Say, you remember the story you told me about Thomas Jefferson not accepting the concept of extinction?
Sure I do. That was the day we discovered the newborn sloth skeleton.
Right. I've thought about that Jefferson story a lot over the past few months. And I think Jefferson and I are soulmates. Now I understand his predicament regarding extinction. Don't get me wrong, I haven't converted to Darwinism or nothing like that. I just have a broader worldview than I used to have, and I thank y'all for that.
We now know that Harrington was actually right. There are now several sites showing that humans and Pleistocene animals coexisted for a while in North America. But Gypsum Cave isn't one of them. There is no evidence that people came into Gypsum Cave before the extinction of the ground sloths. So Harrington gets no credit for making that case. Among Pleistocene paleontologists, at least he is best known for getting fooled. Now, we know quite a bit more about the early arrival of people and their interaction with the Pleistocene animals. Oh gosh, there's even one site in New Mexico where footprints of humans and a giant ground sloth occur together on the same layer. And the arrangement of the footprints suggests that the humans were hunting, well, or at least harassing the sloth. That layer is more than 20,000 years old. It's very likely that human hunters played a key role in causing the extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna. But Gypsum Cave is not part of that story. Throughout his career, Harrington made many important contributions to archaeology, but his reputation is tainted by getting the story wrong here at Gypsum Cave.
I've been thinking a lot about those ground sloths that lived in Gypsum Cave, and I have an important scientific question to ask you. What do you get when you cross a ground sloth with a Canadian, eh?
I cannot begin to guess.
A hairy, slow, skating hockey player.
Okay, Howard, you got me on that one. Now, I have an important scientific question for you. What do you get when you cross a ground sloth with a young Earth creationist, eh?
Uh-oh. All right. Go ahead and give it to me, Jim.
Someone who can tell you the exact date of creation, 5,934 years ago, but he craps all over the living room. Thanks for coming all this way to see me, Howard. It really means a lot to me.
Now I'm confused. How can you explain painted atlatl dart fragments lying underneath a layer of sloth dung that is older than the dart fragments? Is there any possible logical explanation for that?
Well, there might be. Remember the pack rats I keep talking about? They're called pack rats for a good reason. They collect things and bring them home to their nest. For example, picture a person camping in the desert, sleeping under the stars, with his car keys next to his sleeping bag. He wakes up in the morning to find his car keys gone and a piece of burrow dung in its place. A pack rat came by in the night carrying the burrow dung. The rat saw the shiny car keys and he traded the dung for the keys. To the pack rat, it seemed like a fair trade. He probably carried the car keys deep into his burrow. And pack rats often dig their burrows in caves. Maybe, just maybe, a pack rat was attracted to painted dart shafts. He chewed a painted shaft into pieces and carried some of the pieces down into the burrow in Gypsum Cave, beneath the layer of sloth dung where they were found by Harrington. I think that's a possible explanation.
What a wild hypothesis. I love it.
On the other hand...
Oh, on the other hand, what?
Well, through Bertie, my great-grandmother, I'm part Native American myself, you know. Sometimes, like now, sitting by the campfire next to Gypsum Cave with a starry sky above, that little component of my genome comes through loud and clear and speaks to me in a way I cannot put into words. When that happens, I feel the presence of the spirits of the animals and people who live here, including the extinct Pleistocene animals and the Paiute shamans. I can feel them here with us now, Peter. The Paiutes do not want Harrington to excavate their sacred cave. My grandma told me they warned him that bad things would happen if he did, and I simply cannot dismiss that prophecy as superstitious nonsense. My tiny sliver of Native American ancestry does not allow me to do that. I accept the possibility. No, I embrace the possibility that the early death of my great-grandfather and the tarnished legacy of Mark Harrington were not just bad luck. They may have been a direct result of their lack of respect for and flagrant violation of Paiute cultural traditions. When the DNA I inherited from Bertie is awakened, I feel that it is morally wrong for them to have excavated this cave. It was just plain morally wrong. And Jim Thurston and Mark Harrington both paid a heavy price for it. Isn't it interesting that pack rats may have been involved in the misfortunes of both men? Stratigraphically out-of-place artifacts in Harrington's case, and a virus transmitted in vaporized pack rat urine in the case of my great-grandfather. I can't help wondering whether the Paiute shaman and his spiritual helpers collaborated with pack rats to inflict punishment on both of them for desecrating their sacred cave.
Digging up fossils since I was a boy, out on the plains of Drumheller. The past was my future, my fable was set. I've been lucky and happy, I have no regret. The stars were aligned on the day that we met. Our future together looks stellar. Some people live long, some pass away early. We may never know the reason or rhyme, but whether we're slender or whether burly, we all slip away when it's time. Fly on without me, my beautiful birdie. I'm back to the plains of Drumheller. I followed the ground sloths down by the stream. We made lots of plans and we dreamed lots of dreams. Our time went so quickly, it flew by it seems. When our baby grows up, you can tell her. Some people live long, some pass away early. We may never know the reason or rhyme, but whether we're slender or whether burly, we all slip away when it's time. 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 We all slip away when it's time.
Jim? Jim?
Bones, 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 digging up bones. Digging drums. The pay's not great, but what the hell? The Wall Street market crashed and fell. The country's stuck, no one can move her. Thank you kindly, Herbert Hoover. At least we got a job, we're digging up bones. At least we've got a job, we're digging up bones, bones, bones. We're digging up bones.
Steve's up here too.
Stay over here.
Great job.
And Steve.